Great. So this week for our interactive advanced concept, we're going to be mixing pennies with a mixture of vinegar and salt to see what the reaction is on the built-up grime on pennies. So as you can see, I've found pennies that are not clean. They're not super shiny. I've got another stack here for the second part of the experiment. So we're starting out with kind of dull pennies. So the first thing we're going to do is I've got a non-metallic bowl here. It's just a glass bowl that's already got about a teaspoon of salt inside. And so then I am going to add about 1/4 of a cup of just regular vinegar. Try not to spill into the bowl. And then I'm going to stir that up so that all of the salt dissolves and combines with the vinegar in the bowl here. Make sure still some hanging out at the bottom. Get it all mixed in there. Okay, I think we're good. So then, put that there. What I'm going to do is I am going to take my pennies here and I am going to place them in the bowl. Ooh. Make sure that they're not on top of each other so that they can mix properly. And already, excuse me, I can start to see, I don't know if I can tip this without spilling it out. You can start to see some of their reaction already happening. These pennies are already looking much, much cleaner. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to count to about 10 in my head and let them really mix with the solution in the bowl here. Perfect. And now for this part of the experiment, I just have a cup of regular water from the sink right here. Now I'm going to take out these pennies and drop them in the water here. Splashed it. And just give them a good rinse. Swirl them around a little bit. Make sure we get that whole solution off of there. And then, ooh, that's cool. I am going to take the pennies out. If I can. Take the pennies out. And give them a good pat down and rub with the paper towels. Get them all nice and dry. And what you can see here is our pennies that were once very dirty are now very shiny. Yep, they all came out very shiny. They had started looking like this. And the 4 in the center of my hands are the ones that just reacted with the solution. So what's just happened to these 4 pennies is that the vinegar, which is a weak acid, is reacting with the salt to remove the copper oxide that's built up on these pennies over time. And the copper oxide is dissolving once it's mixed into the solution, so that's why it's coming off of these pennies. And if I recreate this experiment, so with my 4 remaining pennies over here, I'm going to take them and I'm going to place them in the solution. And this time, I'm going to count to 10 again. And instead of rinsing them in our cup of water over here, I'm just going to lay them out to dry on this paper towel that's right in front of me. So I'm going to let them sit for a few more seconds. Really let that solution get working on them there. So the same process is happening right now. The copper oxide, excuse me, is dissolving again from the pennies. I can start to see that these pennies are already looking shinier. And when I take these pennies out though, and I just place them to dry, oops, on the paper towel, as they dry, what should start to happen is because these pennies were exposed to the same vinegar and salt, and that copper oxide layer is dissolved. It will allow the copper ions, hopefully, I don't see one working quite yet, it will allow the copper ions to join with the oxygen ions from the air, as well as the chlorine from the salt. And so this is why these pennies will potentially, I don't see any of them working quite yet. These ones were very dirty when they started. What would essentially happen is that these pennies would turn to a bluish green color, and that is the compound called malachite. And this is actually what happened to the Statue of Liberty, which was originally a copper statue, and after years of being exposed to the salt water from the river as well as the air, the Statue of Liberty turned that same bluish green color that we know it is today. And overall, this is a really cool experiment. I'm not exactly sure why this part of the experiment didn't work. It could be that I don't have enough salt mixed with my vinegar. It could be that I used the same vinegar and salt from the previous experiment. There are a few different factors that might have impacted that. But overall, really cool and really easy experiment. It helps to explain the different interactions of acids and compounds that are found, and definitely an experiment that I'll want to do with the kids that I work with.